Monique, it's up to
Hello.
you.
Thank you, Mariam. Hello, everybody. Very welcome on behalf of Gen Netherlands. My name is Monique Rijn, and I'm one of the members of the Dutch Ecovillage Network. And we organize monthly webinar. Since COVID started, it was difficult to meet, so we started to meet online with the Dutch Ecovillages. But today, for the first time, we have an international speaker, and we are very delighted to have him here, Angel Mattia from Gen Europe, the IT specialist and manager of Gen Europe. So, but before we go to him, I would like to give you the opportunity and to show us where you come from, because we have participants from all over the world. So I will put in the chat a link where you can enter your country or an ecovillage where you come from or where you are connected to. So if you click on that link, I hope it works. I will start the presentation. Let me see, I have to share my screen. Wow, Artera Bisimodu, Estonia, Barcelona, some ecovillages from Netherlands, Croatia. Wonderful, great that you are all here. I can, NA, I don't know what is NA, but it doesn't really matter. Thank you for coming. Actually, people subscribed from India, from Brazil, and from United States, and many more countries. But I was already thinking how they must be in such different time zones. So who knows what time it is now in India or Brazil. Anyway, it's wonderful that you are here. And Norway, welcome from Norway. And I will put another question. And that is, how are you feeling at the moment? How are you? I have to find it, one moment. And I will put the link again in the chat. And you can add what you want to add.
I think you pasted the link to the next question, Monique.
I think I did, no? Was it not the same? Was it the same question?
It's what do you want to learn today? But it's also good because it's also something that we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, but I thought to do this question first. How are you? Is that okay for you?
Sure.
Okay, one moment. And I have to do share screen again. And then we get the next question, the third question after this. So this question is, how are you doing today? How are you doing at this moment?
Na głos tej konferencji.
Long computer day, yes, I had the same. There's so much going on the computer nowadays. Relaxed and tired, excited, happy to meet the speaker. Okay, wonderful. Right, then we go to the last question and I hand it over to you, Angel. I stop sharing. The last question, Angel from Gen Europe will take over the microphone.
Yeah.
And I just want shortly to introduce him for all the newcomers also. We are really excited to have you here, Angel, on this webinar of Gen Netherlands. Angel is the IT manager of Gen Europe, and he is this for 4 years, living in Artera Bejumodo in Spain. He is actually from Spain, but he also lived 12 years in Germany and very international involved. And we are really happy to have you here and welcome you. And I will put now the last question and then I hand over to you. Okay, Angel?
Thank you, Monique, and thank you everybody for being here. So the last question that I also want to hear from you is, what do you want to learn today? It's very interesting to check this intention, and then we see what do we come out of here from with. Did you share the?
Yeah, I'm still. It's a bit slow, but it's coming.
Maybe Monique, you can share your screen again as well.
Yeah, I will just, this link, the link I put now is, what do you want to learn today? And I will share the screen now. I think this was from last question.
I also want to learn how to be more calm.
Yes.
Have more privacy. That's a very interesting one. GAFAM. That's definitely a word that we will all learn. How to use it. Yes, more ethical options. That's great. That means that we are aligned with what I felt that we wanted to learn today. Alternatives. Yes. Let's give it a couple more seconds. Okay. Well, then thank you everybody for your questions. And oh, there is a new one there, hosting. Yeah, we will talk about hosting as well. So maybe curiosity word. Yes. Maybe Monique, you can stop sharing now and I will share myself. So I'll share.
Angel, I forgot to say one thing.
Yes.
Dear everyone, if you have questions for Angel, you can put it in the chat. And one of us, me or Marianne or Nicolene, will look at the chat and will support Angel with asking these questions at the appropriate time. So feel free to ask questions in the chat. And that was my forgotten announcement, Angel. And I hand to you again.
Thank you, Monique. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming, and thank you, Jan and Elle, for giving me the chance to talk about this. So today we will actually touch upon all the topics that you've been asking in the Mentimeter, and we will be seeing mostly how to, like, what does actually the big tech represent in our lives, and we might not be aware of, and what can we do about it. So without further ado, I think the first thing that I would love to talk to you about it is, what do we know about the tools that we're actually using? So one of the first things that, or maybe before I jump into the whole topic, I want to say that this will not be necessarily a highly technical presentation. So I'm trying to keep it to a level that it's that can reach out to as many people as we can, because I think this is an important thing to actually know about. So as I was saying, everything nowadays is on the cloud. And what does that mean? Well, we will see it in a minute, but this shows already how much of what we do is actually not stored in our own devices anymore. If you see here, there is an exponential growth between 2017 and what it's actually expected to be in, around less than 10 years from now. And what does actually mean to be in the cloud? Well, there is like this famous meme, this kind of running joke that has been many years on the internet that says there is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer. And I think that's an oversimplification, but indeed, for those of you who don't know it, a cloud is nothing else but a big rack of several normally computers that are either served, used to process data and to store its data. And this is a trend that, as you've seen in the slide before, is a trend that has been growing more and more. So every day we are more interconnected and we rely more on storing information and executing processes and running applications in other places that we call the cloud, but it's a very convenient term for people that are offering cloud services, because many people, when they say no, it's on the cloud, they are just not asking themselves anything else. So what is the cloud? Well, as I said, like different companies offer different big racks of computer that are using up lots of space in different places all over the world. But it's good to know that mainly there are 3 cloud service providers that are accounting for almost 2/3 of the whole cloud market. And those are Amazon Web Services with an amazing 32% of the share. And this is because they were the first ones that started offering this kind of services. Then we have Microsoft Azure with almost 20%. And surprisingly, you would expect to be more, but Google Cloud only accounts for 7%. And then you have many other smaller companies that from all kinds of sizes and ethics that are offering also cloud storing and computing. So that's about the cloud and the tools that we use. And I also want to talk about proprietary software. So all these tools that we use, let's say Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever, they are all written in code. And this code can be it can be decided to be displayed in many forms. Like either the company that provides the product decides to keep the code for themselves, and that's an approach that has been typically going on since code exists. And there are other approaches like, for example, sharing the code with other people, or even opening up the code so that people can examine it. But what would be let's say the typical proprietary software? What are their characteristics? So first, it's a black box. So this means that if you're using an application that is based on proprietary software, you actually do not know what's happening there. Even if you have technical knowledge, you still cannot know, because the companies, they just sell you the finished product. So you don't know anything about, for example, things like their security, or even what happens with our data, where is it stored, etc. Other thing that happens with proprietary software is that all the users are logged into a specific platform, company and format. So this means that if we cannot get the code and reproduce it or make modifications, then we basically are bound to be running with whatever that company decides to do with the platform. Typically, it's also not for free. And this is a very important part. If the tool that we're using is for free, then you must know that you're probably paying with our data. I will go a little bit more into that later. And the last thing is that it promotes monopolization. So one solution typically ends up to being the market leader, and then everybody jumps onto that platform. Like, for example, a good example of that is WhatsApp. No. So what's that word that appeared on the Mentimeter, and who is the big tech? What do we know about those tools? We have these 5 companies: Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft. And in 2017, there is a collective called, and sorry for my French, it's called La Quadrature du Net. And they started a poster campaign because they said, like, this is too important not to talk about it. So they started sharing that, and then actually the name started to be catchy. But many other collectives all over the place have been actually complaining and making sure that people know about what's actually happening behind all those seemingly free applications. So what they say, it's kind of like a very simple and very catchy sentences, but they are true. We will go through them a little bit. So Google filters your thoughts. So basically, when you're searching with Google, these search results are being filtered, and the recommendations are based on what you've previously searched. So this creates an effect called echo chamber, that you're more and more only seeing the things that you would like to see. And then that normally what happens is that you enjoy more the time being in that platform, but then your thoughts and your mindset is not being challenged, which it's not what the world is actually about. Then they say Apple knows where your mom is. Well, it's not only Apple, but if you have an iOS or Android smartphone, then Apple and Google, they track and collect and analyze your location, and they don't even tell you whether they can do it or not. They simply do. Facebook chooses what you read. Again, we have the same concept of the echo chamber, or the so-called filter bubble. Amazon is doing, and not only Amazon, I mean, these are just catchy phrases, but all these companies, they are also doing big data analysis, and they are analyzing the behaviors of the different people that are using their services. And that can tell a lot about, for example, things such as personality traits. And if you collect enough information, then you can influence, like, for example, this big scandal of Cambridge Analytica that we had some years ago. And yeah, last but not least, we have Microsoft formats your kids. No, it's a very catchy phrase again, but it's what they do. It's like these big companies, and because they start monopolizing with their private platforms, they fund schools and university programs, but they make fundings with conditions. So this means, in a way, they're actually lobbying even in our future generations, so they are even more prepared to actually consume what they're selling. So all of this is what I've been talking about. It could be summarized in here. So first thing is, every time that you use something for free, there is data collection, and you would be amazed of all the things that can be collected. Not only location, but like all your searches. If you use, for example, a Gmail account, then Google can analyze that. They have machines that are analyzing all the texts. They are theoretically saying that they are not using anything to spy on anybody, but simply the fact that they can massively use that to analyze behaviors. It's quite scary, and it gives them like huge power, and that's how they actually make money. Then we have what I was mentioning before, the content selection with filter bubble and echo chambers. Just by using Facebook and seeing what comes in your wall, this is already a filtered version of what could be there. If Facebook sees what you click like on, then they're going to show you more and more content of what you've been liking, because that will increase your time in the platform. But that's going to make you a little bit detached of the actual world where you have people with different opinions. Then what I was mentioning about influencing and lobbying schools, universities, and local authorities, this is very important. And if we give our data and therefore more power and money to the big tech, we are influencing negatively or we're letting them influence our future generations' education. And of course, they're also rooting for the passing of laws that benefit their for-profit nature. So in the end, they are there to make money. And if we give them more data to make more money with, then they're going to be also influencing the laws with all the money that they have, so that they can continue making money.
Well, there is one question.
Yes.
What are echo chambers? So
this is what I explained before. It's pretty much the same concept as filter bubble. It means that in the end, it's very graphic meaning. So an echo chamber is when you talk and you only hear your echo. So this means that you're only hearing like-minded individuals, and this is achieved by filtering the results that you're getting. And then the last concept that I wanted to mention here is the user login to specific platforms. And this creates less resilience. So it's a more centralized world, and therefore we are dependent on this big tech. And then again, increases the big tech revenue, which then again can be used to influence and lobby schools, etc., etc., etc. So I know it's early in the presentation, but I feel that this is already enough food for thought. And Marianne will, in a minute, take us to breakout spaces when I tell you, Marianne. But what I would love for all of us, because I don't want this to be me talking to you about something, but I want to reflect at this point that we all reflect with each other. So we will be in groups of 2 and 3. And these are some questions that, for example, are interesting to think about. And probably you're also asking yourselves right now, how much of your work and communication is online nowadays? What kind of things do you share online, even if it's in a one-on-one conversation? Do you know what happens with your data once you send it or store it online? What sources of information do you use? Are you using more than one? How can you, and this is not written, but can you be sure that you're not already in some kind of echo chamber? And how do you feel about what has been shared so far? Where does that leave us? I mean, I know it's not maybe a very nice picture, but many people are actually not even thinking about those things. So maybe Marianne, you can open up the breakout rooms, and you have 5 minutes to talk about these things with your peers, and then we'll see each other back in here in 5 minutes.
Okay, I opened the rooms, but be aware I have muted you all, so you have to unmute yourself on your device. Good luck and see you in 5 minutes. Adhel, sorry, we don't hear you.
How about now?
Yes, better. Welcome back all.
Welcome back, everybody. So before we continue, I would love, if possible, to hear maybe 2 or 3 voices of things that were mentioned during the breakout spaces. Whoever who feels like sharing anything that popped up.
You just can unmute yourself and
Yeah.
Yeah,
speak it out.
we didn't get to talk very much, except that we explained each other in the chat that this is not new information for us, that we're being followed. Personally, I think the Global Ecovillage Network does such a good job of providing information that we have the critical minds to cope with this this discrepancy, and that doesn't influence Jen very much, because we are able to be above all of this manipulation in the background. Jen is really, this is a power of being part of the Global Ecovillage Network, is that we really are critical, open-minded, and we're looking for information from many different directions. So we're not going to get stuck in this mind.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's a nice spirit that you bring there, Alice. Any other wants to comment on anything that came up during the breakout space? Okay, I feel like sharing a couple of things actually that came out in our breakout space. Like, for example, how to like, somebody was mentioning, Katarina mentioned, you know, like if I use Facebook for my business, I can attract more customers, and that's absolutely true. Like we have to accept the fact that there are well-established networks and tools that will simply reach out to more people. Or Kun, who was saying like, well, sometimes it's just that Google Drive makes like lives easier when we are working on a network. So I will share my screen again, and now I will try to go through things that hopefully will address these issues, and at the same time try not to be dependent on the big tech. So before I go into more concrete things, I just want to mention very briefly what's free open source software. So the free open source software, the word free here, it's if you look it up on the internet, they're always going to say, you're going to find many websites that it says it's free as in free speech and not as in free beer. So it doesn't mean that it's for free. Sometimes actually open source is not. So you have to pay a certain subscription, or you pay for maintenance, or you pay for hosting. But the free part of it refers to freedom. And there are, according to the Free Software Foundation, there are 4 kinds of freedom that we are exercising when we're using free open source software. First, that you can use the software for any purpose, and it's free of restrictions. So there are no license expirations or geographic limitations, for example. Then we are also free to share. So we can share it, we can copy it at virtually no cost. So that's, for example, some things that we actually are doing at Gen Europe, and I will show you later. We are also free to study it, and this is very important. So we are able to see what's going on inside, and we are able to audit it and see whether they have any kind of security flaws. And last but not least, we're also able to improve it. So if we want to have some kind of similar software that does something, and then let's say the main team that it's working on it doesn't have the time or the capacity to do it, the good thing about the free open source software is that if you have the capacity, you can do it yourself, and then either create a new software, or you can help that piece of software be better. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is, as I mentioned before, we have acknowledged kind of that people are working with cloud services nowadays. So if you want to work as a network, there is probably there is always an alternative, but if you still want to rely on a cloud, you can still have your own services and data in either your own servers, which again, it's nothing else than computers that are running a certain software, or you have also, you can rely on smaller trustworthy hosting suppliers that are not these big companies. And that again would prevent big companies from accessing to our information and doing big data analysis with it. We can also select the location of our servers, how they are powered, and the values of the supplier. These are all questions that probably nobody is thinking about when they are using Instagram, for example. And by that, we also avoid the platform lock-in and the monopoly of solutions, and we increase, by having more diversity, we are more resilient automatically. So one thing that I want to mention now is the so-called pyramid of remote team communication tools. And now I know that from everything which is appearing here, I'm going to be focusing much more on how to interact as a network, and I'm going to be focusing on GEN, on the Global Ecovillage Network, and how do we interact with each other. Because I know that there is a lot of tools that are used to reach out, and then maybe in the second part of this webinar we can go into that. But for now, I think it's also very important to tackle what tools do we use to interact with each other. And one concept that I want to introduce you to is the concept of the pyramid of remote team communication tools. So this is an example that I learned from a tool called Doist. And they are using something where they basically say, like, yes, we use tools to communicate with each other, but we want to make sure that we use the proper tool to communicate in the proper time and for the proper goal. So they have, for example, one tool for the day-to-day communication. Then they have a bunch of different tools that they're using for different kind of purposes, either for design, for coding, for specifications, for tasks, whatever. And then the more we go up into the pyramid, this means the least amount of time that we spend with that specific tool. And as you can see, something that I haven't mentioned here is that the lower part, it's mostly asynchronous. This means that you send the message, and then whenever the other person has the time to look at it, then they will interact with that. But then we also have a bunch of synchronous tools and synchronous settings where we have to, or we want to meet with each other, no? Like, for example, weekly or monthly one-on-ones, team meetings, ad hoc meetings, and then there are typical solutions, like, for example, today we're using Zoom, but there are other more ethical solutions that I will talk to you in a minute. Then, of course, the in-person meetings, and then something to use in case of emergency that could be as simple as just calling somebody using the phone. So what are the characteristics of Gen Europe? And this could be expanded to Gen globally as well, as a network. So we are mostly asynchronous. So we're working mostly asynchronously, and we have some degree of synchronous communication. But mostly we exchange messages with each other, and we work in working groups with each other. And we do not require to be all the time doing everything together. That would be simply impossible as well. In Europe, we also have 4 hours of time difference between extremes. We have the difference between paid and voluntary contributions. Like, for example, I'm part of the Gen Europe staff, and then Monique, I think it's also a paid staff from Gen NL. But then there is a lot of voluntary contributions. And for example, when we have national networks gathering, then there are many people that are coming voluntarily. We have working group constellation, and we use a sociocratic governance frame. And also very important to mention that ecovillages are typically in remote locations and not always reliable internet connection, which is also something to have in mind when you're designing a communications strategy. So this is the pyramid the way that I envision it for Gen Europe. And this is not everything what's in here. It's a reality nowadays, but we will go into each and every one of these tools one by one, so that you know what we have or what we're using or what we want to use at Gen Europe. So one of the, maybe I should say that one of the key elements of the strategy of Gen Europe with regards to IT is that we've committed to use open source and self-hosted tools. And as of today, I can say that at least staff and council are almost 100% in there. And I will tell you one by one all about these different tools that are already offering good alternatives to what we have today. So we use an instant messaging tool that it's called Rocket Chat. And this is for our announcements, ideas, inspirations, etc. This is for maybe those of you who know it. It's similar to Slack, but Slack is a proprietary software. And this is completely open source. And we have simply gotten the code and deployed it in one of our servers. And we're using it not only for staff and council, but we've also started using it for different projects and other working groups. Then we have our own email server with Roundcube. We're using something called NextCloud to store our documents and much more that I will show you later. We're using LibreOffice and Office, which is the tool that allows us to edit the documents in NextCloud. And then we're using something called CVCRM. It's where we store the data from our members and where we also send our mailings from. All of these tools are open source and they are hosted in our servers. This is an open project tool that it's used to run our projects. We store our code and our wikis and documentation on Gitlab. We have forum with discourse. I will show you all these tools in a minute. Then we have something called Ninja Forms, that it's our registration forms and all the forms that we're using for people to contact us or register for events at Gen Europe are Ninja Forms. And our websites are developed with WordPress, which is also open source. And I have to mention that I don't know if this is the right time for it, but in the transition towards, let's say, a more ethical software and tools, it's logical that, or it's pretty much impossible to go from all proprietary to all free and not commit any kind of, let's say, failing or okay, I will phrase it in a different way. So I think we have to be gentle with ourselves and accept that it's a long-term goal, what we're trying to achieve, and it's okay if from time to time we are not always using the most appropriate thing. And I think life is about balancing that. Like, for example, I had somebody who was writing me an email and saying, like, I cannot believe that you're using they're using Zoom to actually have a video conference promoting open source software. And I said, well, this is what we had at the moment, and we've been trying to do other things. So at some point we will replace Zoom with Team and Jitsi, Big Blue Button and Jitsi, that are other options. Then here we have the Ecovillage Gathering, which is an in-person event. And in case of emergency, we would call each other, or we would use a tool called Threema that I probably will not be introducing today, but this would be the alternative. Maybe I say a few words about this. Threema, for if you're interested in having in searching for it, it's an instant messaging app that has been developed in Switzerland, and their servers are also located in Switzerland. And this guarantees that there will be nobody entering that data. So people nowadays, many people are going out from WhatsApp, which is already, I think, a very good step. But then people are migrating towards Telegram or even Signal. And well, I have bad news for you. Like even Telegram and Signal, they have servers that they are located in the US. Therefore, they could be accessed by the military if we want to get extreme. And they are also using, both of them, they're using Amazon Web Services for their hosting. So it's very tricky. Some comments about the current pyramid of Gen Europe are that, as I said, we're still relying on Zoom for online calls, but we're working on that. We have deployed an alternative to Google Drive, but for some older projects and some things, we're still using Google Drive and Docs. And what we're doing here, it's something called like slow adoption. And it's not like if there is an ongoing project using Google Drive, then we're not trying to make a hard migration, but we're just saying like, just continue with Google Drive until you stop, you finish your project. But any new project or any new document that we want to start and we want to create anew, then we're not using Google Drive anymore. So eventually at some point, we will have all our data somewhere else. Our forum is available, but we are still not using it very actively. We're still using WhatsApp. We have a WhatsApp group. So for emergencies, we're still using WhatsApp. And this is one of my, let's say, crusades that with the staff team, I want to convince them to jump to Threema. We have still other needs that are not currently covered with our strategy. So we need to continue working on that. And our solution, the one that the one that I just presented to you and the one that I'm going to present to you one by one now, they're not connected. So it's not like if you sign, there is an option that you could sign in and then you would not have to sign in any other thing. And this we don't have at the moment. And we're also not federated or linked with other systems. I don't know if any of you knows what a federated system is, but this means that, for example, if I'm running a system, let's say a Rocket Chat, I could theoretically connect to other Rocket Chats that are located in other servers, and then messages could be exchanged. And this is very powerful, but we're not using that yet. So at this point, I want to mention that all this research and all these tools that we have been using, we're not only using for ourselves. And by ourselves, I mean staff and council and working groups. I mean that this is also available for everybody who is within Gen Europe. And I'm also in collaboration with Gen International, and we're even considering the possibility of extending this concept to other regions. But for now, at the European level, we've set up what we call the ITU Toolbox, and it's for those people who actually want to use their like alternatives for the networks. They're welcome to try what we're offering and the things that I've been working on for the past 2 years. So I will go also one by one here. So the first thing that we've started doing is that we've migrated all of our websites to WordPress. I know that there are some, let's say, critiques to WordPress. Although WordPress is open source, it's also it accounts for, I believe, more than 40% of all the websites worldwide. And this, of course, is could be a potential security problem. But because we wanted to synchronize with Gen International, and because they've been developing a WordPress theme for many years now, we thought that we wanted to align the whole strategy, and we started creating our website, but we've also started offering the possibility of creating other websites using that theme. And the benefits of that theme I can show you later, but the idea is that we will be able to continue the development of this theme and more functionalities that everybody who's using that theme will be able to adopt as soon as they come out.
Angel,
Yes.
I have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Katrina says, I do have a lot of problems with security on my WordPress websites.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's hacked every year, she says.
Yeah, it's true. That's what I just mentioned. And there are ways, I will not get into it today, but there are ways to make your WordPress site more secure. And there's good practices that you can do in order to avoid many of the most typical attacks. One of the basic ones is to keep always the website up to date, because just by updating to the latest versions of WordPress, many of the vulnerabilities are always solved. But I will not go into those details today. I'm aware of that problem, and we still have decided to go for WordPress because it allows us to align ourselves with Gen International and other regions.
And one more question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
One more question is, what about Joomla?
Yeah, as I said, we didn't decide. I know Joomla is a very known CMS as well. Myself, I have not much experience with Joomla, and I don't even know whether it's open source or not. The only thing that I can tell you is that we've decided to go for WordPress because of this interoperability. But there are many other options. You have Joomla, you have Drupal, Typo 3. There are many other options out there. And I'm not telling you to go for WordPress. I'm just telling you why we decided to go for WordPress ourselves.
Thank you.
Yes, so this allows us to create new websites in an easier way, and it also allows us to sorry, I'll go back. Allows us to develop new plugins and functionalities for that. Instead of being just for one website, they could be for all of the websites at the same time. I will show you after the break. I will show you some examples of that. Then we're also using something called Ninja Forms. If you have participated in some of our past events, you probably have been registering using these forms. So these forms are also allowing for very complex registration forms, and they make calculations and conditional logic. And this is also something that we can build into any of our websites, and we also are offering it for those members who maybe do not have the time or the expertise to do that for themselves. So, for example, another funny thing is that some days ago I realized that the registration form for this event was done in Google Forms, and if I had had more time, I would have definitely offered to do it in Ninja Forms. But as I say, we have to be gentle with ourselves, and sometimes we have to just accept that we're doing the best that we can, and that's the way it is, as long as we have our goal clear. Then this is the main tool that we use for our day-to-day communication, and as you can see, it looks very much like, for those of you who know it, it looks very much like Slack. So we have a left panel here with, you have the names, the teams, the channels, and then here there's the space for conversations, and then you can also create a thread, what is called a thread, so that if you want to have a more specific conversation, but still people can follow that. So like you see any of these blue buttons here, I will show you after the break I will show you live. But you can click on those and then you go into a thread. And this is the main team collaboration tool that we use, not only the staff and council, but also the working groups at Gen Europe. And we are also offering it for different projects that are where Gen Europe is collaborating. We've even offered this for free. So normally all these tools are on a donation basis, but we've also offered it for free to, for example, I'm just going to give you an example. The Regional Water Alliance in Portugal, because they said like, well, we're starting to get organized right now. We don't have any money, but we would really love to use an ethical tool. And then we created some teams and channels for them. Nice.
And another question, Angel, from Jarek.
Yeah.
Have you considered Mattermost?
Yes, that's a good question. We did consider Mattermost at the beginning, and I did some research, and in the end I saw that both Rocket Chat and Mattermost were very similar in features. I'm talking about back in 2018. So then we just decided, we made an educated decision, and out of all we tried, I tried both systems, and I just decided to go for Rocket Chat. There was no specific reason, because both of them, they had a very active community, they had a very good documentation. I just felt back in the days that I was more attracted to using and the documentation and the community behind Rocket Chat. But I think that nowadays Mattermost, it's also a very good alternative. Yeah, so nowadays Rocket Chat and also other tools like Mattermost, they also allow for groups, channel threads, and one-on-one communications. You also have desktop and mobile applications available, and this could be federated, what I was explaining before, and integrated with other tools. So like, for example, Rocket Chat has something that Mattermost, I believe, does not have, which is that they have something called omnichannel, where you can set it up so that all the communication that goes to different channels, like for example, if you have let's say an organization WhatsApp number, you could receive that WhatsApp communication in Rocket Chat. Yeah. So here we have Open Project. So this is a tool that we use to manage our projects. And it's basically all about, it's a project planning tool. So it's about creating working packages, having a Gantt chart view, the dependencies, creating schedules, hierarchies, calendar, make a progress tracking, reports, etc. So it's an interesting little tool that we use. Then we have Gitlab. Gitlab is a very powerful tool, and we're using it only a very limited amount of its power. I don't know if you're familiar with GitHub. GitHub, for many years and still is the place to go where people store their code, especially for open source code. The problem is that some years ago, GitHub was bought by Microsoft. So again, part of the GAFAM. And that was a very sad piece of news for the open source community. But since then, this alternative, Gitlab, has increased more and more into reliability, and it pretty much offers anything that GitHub offers. So it's a place where you can store your code, but also you can have different issues. You have Kanban boards, you can report and track them. You have continuous integration. You can even implement a service desk. You can create wikis and documentation. Like, for example, all the ITU Toolbox documentation of Gen Europe is created in a project inside of our GitLab. Then we have Discourse. This is a forum, and as I was mentioning before, we're still not using it very actively, but we're looking for possibilities to actually start using it more and more. So our idea here is that people from that are working or collaborating with Gen Europe. They could come in here and they could ask questions, and then people could start searching in the forums and they would come up with solutions, and hopefully people could start also answering themselves. Not answering themselves, answering to each other, I meant. Yeah, and this course, it's again open source. It gives many possibilities of different multiple access levels, different tags and groups. It's embeddable into WordPress websites. It's also mobile friendly and many more things. Then this is our biggest thing, I would say, and the one that we are most proud of. So NextCloud is file storage, but not only. It's like a complete alternative to Google Docs and Google Drive. You can do online document editing, as you can see here, but also it has their own instant messaging tool and video conference tool. It has a calendar, it has maps, it has something called Deck, where it's a Kanban board. You can create your own polls, similar to those of you who are using Doodle, and is extensible via apps. So these are some examples of NextCloud. This is the Kanban board that I was telling you about, called Deck, and this is the NextCloud. So the polls. So here you can see a real poll that I created the other day. Here we have our CVCRM. So this is our content, the customer relationship management tool. So here we have our membership management. Here we have our mailing lists. Here we also import and export groups of individuals and organizations. It's GDPR compliant. You can also create events, campaigns, create some kind of reports, invoicing, etc. You can see some examples here. This would be a report of contributions. This would be an invoice, and some report on how well it went, the moon cycle news for Gen Europe, successful deliveries, unique opens, etc. And how to start using the ITU Toolbox. In case that you're interested, all the necessary information is here. So this presentation will be available later, and it includes necessary links to our documentation and recommended donation amounts. And then again, in case that it's not possible for you to make a donation, we're also considering supporting initiatives that are working with our values for free. And some of the services have not yet been described in detail, but you're always very welcome to ask. And we're also very open for suggestions. So if you have not heard from a tool, but that you think that there is something that you would like to see, then also we can use the second part of this webinar to talk about those things. And last but not least, I want to talk about what are we planning in the future. So we would love to start offering the CVCRM for our members, or even installation service for that. We want to start offering the possibility of creating the email service for own domains that people could buy. We're thinking about also start playing around with an event management tool. We want to switch from Zoom to either Big Blue Button or Jitsi. I want to try out to use a different mass mailing tool, because CVCRM is good enough, but I think the power of CVCRM lies somewhere else. And this is a very interesting thing that I'm very also excited about. We want to try out with a voting software. I would love to replicate our sociocratic voting mechanism to make it in a distributed environment. Yeah, and so much more. So this is where we would finish today, this first part. But before that, I would love to leave you with some questions. We will have a break now. And after the break, we will go back into breakout spaces where we can talk about certain things. And my proposal for you is that after the break, we can talk about what is it that I'm taking with me from this presentation, or what I could share from my own knowledge, because here I'm not the only expert. I mean, I'm sure there are people with other amazing ideas or inspirations. I also would like to know if now you're more willing to try other alternatives, or if you've seen something that has inspired you, and what do you think that you would like to use in that case, and if you could think of what would be the steps that you would take to do that. I think now you should be able to hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you take over again.
Thank you, Monique. But yeah, please. So basically, we are inviting people to share what, like, if they have found something interesting in their groups during these 10 minutes. And then we can go more into like a Q&A for the next half an hour. I can also share my screen and show you some of the tools in action of what I was talking about. So yeah, feel free to ask about anything that I've said, or anything that has appeared during your conversation, or something that you've thought about.
I can share.
Okay.
I wasn't in a group, but we were talking, Marianne, Roberto and me. And I realized it would be lovely to go into depth into some of these tools, because it's quite, there are so many tools, so it's good to start somewhere, I think. So that was it's very inspiring, but it's good to make a choice, I think, to start with one or two of the tools.
I'll gladly do that. So maybe there is some other comments from the groups, and if not, I could just jump into that.
Yeah, I think I second that. When you go through all those software programs, it is really a lot, and that scares me a little bit. Not because I will not be able to use it, but if you want to use it all, then it costs so much time, I think. So I think if we are going to start, it would be with the staff of the membership system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, maybe an alternative for Google Drive.
Okay.
The NextCloud, was it? Huh?
So you're also free to still ask questions on the chats while I will share my screen again.
There is one question which was already before the break from Alice from Gen Africa. I would like to share this presentation with an IT person in Ghana. Will that be possible?
Yes, of course. So she already gave me his email address, but this presentation is being recorded, and I will also make sure that the link is available for all of you. So you will be able to access this presentation after. Not the part that I'm showing now. This is not part of the presentation, but it will be part of the recording. So let's start. I have all the tabs open here, but maybe let's start with NextCloud. So this is how it looks, the alternative to Google Drive. And what you can see here on the upper part is all the different things that are there. So the typical thing that you would like to access normally is a place where you can store like all the different folders. And you can see I have some folders that are my own folders, but I have some folders that are shared, or even folders that somebody has shared with me. And you can go into any, like, for example, if I go into the staff and I go into IT, then I can find this very same presentation that it's here. You can even create a file, or you can upload also a file. But for example, let's say that I want to create a new document. So I'll just give it a name, and I can select a template if I want. And when I click on create, it just works very much like Google Drive. So what it's now doing is it is starting now another program within NextCloud that it's called Collabora Office. That it's this tool called Collabora Online Development Edition, that it's used with LibreOffice technology. So everything is open source, and it allows for create something online, but it also can be collaboratively edited. So yes, Francois is asking if it's collaborative, and I will show you right now. So here I can click on share, and I'm gonna share this link with others. And on the link, I can select, for example, that I want to allow editing. And this, if I share this link now with you, which I'm gonna do in the chat, feel free to enter in this document, and you will see that you are able to write some things with me.
Nadia has a question. Is NextCloud associated with an email like Google Drive with Gmail?
So NextCloud is if you have an account, you have to have an email, but you don't need to. It doesn't need to be definitely Gmail. So you have to have an email to have an account. Yes, but you can also, for example, right now I opened this. You can see everybody is writing here. So I opened the document, and you don't need to have. There is the possibility also to allow for guests to write collaboratively, so they don't need to have an account.
And is NextCloud, are NextCloud documents embeddable? A question from Francois.
Embeddable. It's a good question. I don't know. I would need to look into that. I guess you mean to be embedded on a different websites. Probably yes, but I don't know. I haven't done it yet. Embeddable means, Alice, I'm reading the question directly on the document, is to be able to put it, for example, as a frame within a website.
So this document, which is created now, will be stored in NextCloud.
Yes, and what Bowie is asking is if we need a server to run this service, and the answer is yes. But what we're offering here is like Gen Europe has done all these. So NextCloud is an open source software, and you can take that software and you can do whatever you want with it. And what we've done is we have downloaded and we have installed it in our own server, and we have configured it, and now we are offering our instance for other people in the network to use. So we're offering the possibility of creating accounts.
Okay, so we can create an, let's say, Gen Netherlands account on the server of Gen Europe. Is that
Yes.
what I understand?
And exactly. And what Nadia is asking is if we download that document, what happens? So if we download the document, we have the different possibilities, but typically we can download it in the open format, which is ODT. And this can be opened with any kind of text editor. You can open it with LibreOffice, which is the suite that I'm using, but you can also open it with Microsoft Office if you want. you can even store it with Microsoft format, or you can even create an EPUB for an e-reader or a PDF download. And somebody's asking here, I'm not in the network. Do I then have to have my own server? For now, we have started offering this to people within the network, but you can also be very easily within the network. Let's say if you're part of a working group, you're already within the network. But the short answer for your question is yes. If you're not within the network, it's relatively easy also to deploy your own server. But then again, like if it's only you as an individual, what would be the use for that? And if it's you as a movement or as a network or as a project, then we can always talk about it. If you're a Gen Swiss member, it does automatically make you a member of the Gen Europe network, because Gen Swiss is part of the Gen Europe network, yes. Okay, so that's it for, I think it's, I don't know if there are more questions about that. So that's something that you can do with this. I will just close the document now.
I do have a question, Ankel.
Yeah.
How much storage do you have? For instance, with Google Drive, we have 15 gigabytes normally.
Mm-hmm.
And for GenNL, we now reached that. So
yeah.
How would that be on the Gen Europe server?
It depends on the users, and it depends on, so right now we have a dedicated server that it's a physical machine and has a certain amount of space available. But I'm sure that this can be expanded and extended if we need. For now, it's more than enough for what we need. So right now, I haven't yet started, like I've created accounts for people in staff and council, and I've given them 1 gigabyte, but this definitely can be extendable to much more than that.
Thank you.
But we have to think about it, and we have to, yeah. I mean, it's not like we don't have an unlimited storage as, for example, Google has. The more storage we need, the more we would need to pay, and therefore maybe that could also be distributed amongst the people that are using NextCloud. So that's the document editing. You can also create all other kinds of documents. Like you can create diagrams, you can create spreadsheets, presentations. As the one that I was showing you right now, it was created within NextCloud. You can even set up a whiteboard. This is typically useful if you're doing like some kind of team presentation online, and then you can open it, and then people again here could doodle around. I could share the link again, and I could allow edit for that, and then I'm gonna share it again, and you can draw a little bit if you want. But so these are things that you can use for whatever you want to do within a team, and they are all very, very useful.
Nadia had the question: if you want to transfer from Google to NextCloud, can you do it straight away, or do you first need to download it and then upload it again?
You have to download them first and upload them again. I don't know if there is some kind of automatic migration tools. But yeah, because Google Docs is their own proprietary format. And Katarina is also asking if we can make drawings. Yes, as you can see, like I'm just making some kind of drawing here. There is a safe possibility to sync my Apple computer with my iPhone without Apple's cloud. Wow, that's way too specific. I don't know. I don't use Apple, sorry. I'm on Ubuntu for many years now. Okay, so something else that I want to show you about NextCloud, because I'm also aware of the time, is that there is not only files, but you can do some other things. So there is the possibility of having Talk, that it's like an instant messaging tool. Right now, we're not using this one, but we could very well use that as well. You can store your contacts, you have calendars. But maybe probably the most interesting things are that the deck, what I was showing you on the presentation. So this is a Kanban board, for example, IT. Now I have a board here with all the things that I'm doing, all the things that I need to do. And if it's done, then you can move it to done. And you can play around with them. You have like a different kind of checkboxes, etc. And then the other thing that is very interesting is also the capability of creating polls. And yeah, you can see you can create some kind of poll here with like different options, dates or whatever, and they can be public as well.
Is this what you also use for planning? For how do you call this? Setting a date together with a team.
Yes, yes. So this would be the alternative to Doodle, and it works really well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for NextCloud. I mean, I could explain to you much more, but basically you have to imagine that it's something where you can, and I'm using some of the apps, but there are more apps that you can use. Like here, there is a whole collection of different things that I could install. And if I install them, they are automatically available for everybody that are using NextCloud in this server. Good. So I think I'm going to move on to something else, because if not, we're going to run out of time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is CVCRM. CVCRM is our membership tool, and you have things like from contacts to contributions to events, membership. So here is where we are dealing with all our data, our membership, the contributions that we have received, etc. And we can also send mails, mass mailing with this, and we don't have the, like, for example, here you have our moon cycle news that if you're a Gen Europe member, you receive those. And this is, they are created with this. And you can even have a report on what kind of percentage, how many people, like how many recipients do I have, how many deliveries have I done, how many people have opened it, how many people have clicked through, etc. So that it's a very powerful thing. You can also create some events and campaigns, and we're not using, like, we're using, I would say, half of its capabilities, but it's a very, very interesting tool to manage our members. And
how many subscribers can you add to this mailing?
There is no limitation. It's not like MailChimp.
Yeah, okay, no limitation. Yeah.
No. So that's CVCRM. I'm going a little over website. So these are some things that, so this is the website, the Gen Europe's website, and this is using it's using this theme that it's done with a license called Creative Commons, which is basically the open source license that everybody can just reuse. And some interesting things that we can do with this is, for example, this thing here. So this is another website that I've created with the same theme. And here we have an Ecovillage map. And the beauty of this Ecovillage map is that all this information that you see here, I have not entered manually, but I have connected to the database of Gen International. And I have decided I want to download only the information from Sweden and from Slovenia. And then automatically the information is synchronized between this website and Gen International's website. So we have the same information appearing in two different websites at the same time. And this is very cool because this means that all the data is going to be much more cohesive. And we are going to be showing the same data in all the different websites that are using this technology. And this very same thing you can do with the directory, and you can see all this information is exactly the same information that you have on the Gen International website, but you can display it in your own way with your own style. And this is going to be very useful for a project that we're working in. It's called WeSeen, and we're creating 2 new regional networks, and they're going to be using this technology to display their own ecovillages. So what else can I show you? This is a form created with Ninja Forms. And as you can see, well, it has many different things. Like, for example, if depending on what you click, then there are things that are appearing or not appearing, and your price contribution will change also because of that. So they are allowing for relatively complex registration forms and contact forms. And this is how the form builder looks like. So you can just drag and drop many of the things. You can select just country, but then you can also say, like, for example, some conditional logic. If people has decided to pay with PayPal, then I do some logic here that serves me to make some calculations. So it's, again, quite interesting, and that's also something that people within the network can benefit from. Then here we have the open project. That's the one that I was mentioning before. We can have, for example, some test project here. Let's see what they've created. Well, they've created 2 tasks. You can see some work package and some Gantt chart. You can move the work package if you want. And you can even visualize it on full screen. It's quite convenient. Kun is saying the form definitions require some guidelines. Yeah, I mean, it's not completely self-explanatory to use, but it's also not very complicated to learn. What else can I show you? This is Gitlab. So, and for example, what we've done in Gitlab is we're storing our code, but we've also created a wiki with all the documentation that it's openly available. Like, for example, how to use Rocket Chat. And there is a lot of things here on how to use it. And you can also create, if you want, some issues. And you would, again, here have some boards, which would be similar to the Kanban style that we've seen before. And so much more. It's a very powerful tool. That's, again, in its own server, as you can see here. And yeah, you can do many things. You have your preferences. You can go into your to-do list if you have some. Well, right now I don't have any to-dos in here. Yeah, it's quite a powerful tool. This is our forum, and you can see, for example, here we've started playing around with some things here, but we haven't actually done much, to be honest, because we need to have some members that actually are interested in working with it. Like here we have some initial topic and some person is answering, etc.
So is that a tricky thing, Ankel, that you know, you have this platform and you want to use it, but everybody falls back into the things that they know. And
yeah, I mean, there needs to be some adoption, like willingness. People have to be willing to adopt it, and people have to be aware of what happens with tools that they're using right now, because it's the thing is that the tools that we are using, and maybe I will stop sharing now so that we can all see each other. So the tools that we're using right now, they are very convenient and they are super simple and easy to use, because there is a lot of money behind them in order to make sure that they are easy to be used. So they make everything what it's in their hands to actually keep people using their tools. And I know it's complicated and it requires some effort, but I hope that by showing what I've shown today and what they do with the data, and that we are slightly more willing to actually continue doing that change. I know that all of you, if you're here, it's because you're some way already motivated by it.
yeah, but that's I think the thing, like, how can we keep this moment that we have here? How can we keep it there to keep working on it? You know, like, because after this meeting, we go our own way, and we have to find our way into this, and we can use then your website. But I think it would be really nice or great to have a moment once a week at a certain time to knock somewhere on the internet, on a door, like, hi guys, how are we doing with this? How can we work it bigger, or make it bigger, or work it out?
It's a very good point.
Yeah, to follow up, the question is,
yeah,
I think it's very useful to have Alice writes, this needs to be thematized in the Gen newsletters. Maybe it could be an online course or something. We can think about it. Huh?
Yeah.
I think this is the beginning. If we at least raise awareness and become aware of this topic.
I suggest for the Dutch network that we put it on the agenda of the first networking weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing.
And then there should be some people who take contact with Angel and who can more quickly than I understand what he is saying and doing for the larger part.
Yeah.
So, and then this group can maybe help all the members of General.
Here, Alice says that the people in Genoa, so Asia and Oceania, would also be interested. They are very active. I think I can imagine that, like you said, Koen, that we have such an amazing international global network. I think there will be a lot of knowledge, probably, and support maybe somewhere available. A community platform is
maybe as a last comment from me today regarding tips on platforms. So we at Gen, we have started using something called Hilo, and we have been using it for different events. And this is an open source kind of social media platform that we know the developers, and they are very much aligned with our values. So that's what we've started to use for our events and some communication with the outside world. But then again, like today, I've been focusing more on internal communication within a network, because the external communication also depends on having enough critical mass so that enough people that are not within our network are also there, because we want to reach out to people that are not necessarily yet on board with all the things that we do. And that's the tricky part.
Angel, I think we are almost reaching the time. I want to thank you a lot about this amazing presentation and all your work and skills of that brought you to be able to present all this, because it's amazing how much tools and programs you already explored and choose and worked with and implemented in Gen Europe. So thanks a lot for all that work for me.
Thank you. Thank
and,
you. Thank you, Jen and Elle. Thank you, Monique. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Nicolene. And thank you, everybody, for spending 2 hours of your precious time. And I know that we're all tired of being in video conferences talking about this.
And I have a last Mentimeter. I put it now in the chat. What do you take home? And what did you take from this? So that would be really nice and interesting to. And I will try to share my screen again. Yeah. If it goes wrong, one moment. Yes, here it's coming. Would you like to comment on this, Angel?
Yeah. So I see a lot of awareness, assertivity. There is a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to take in. Experienced insights. I think that's always good to share these kind of things. Useful, needed, generative, I guess, regenerative, informative, which I'm really glad that it was. I also see some things about where to start, plan, explored, let's do it. So there are some questions, but at the same time, there is motivation. And you can always contact me at Gen Europe if you have questions on how to proceed with adopting a more ethical online presence, because that's one big key part of what we're doing in this network.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if you want to find Gen Europe, it's geneurope.org, I think.
Yeah, I will just put it on the chat as well.
Yes. And I want to thank everybody for coming and signing up. I think this is maybe the start of the first direct cooperation with Gen Europe and Gen Netherlands. I don't know. Let's see what happens. It was really wonderful that people from all over the world joined and signed up. And we will send you the recording and the presentation, and so you can look at it again. And I just want to say that I think we are very happy that we have these monthly webinars. And if you are interested, feel free to sign up for GenNL. Maybe someone can put the email or website of GenNL in the chat. We have sometimes, of course, webinars in Dutch, but very often also in English. So feel free to check them out. And I want to thank you again, Angel, and also Marianne and Nicolene for helping and creating this together. And I think that's about it. Is there someone who wants to say something? And if not, I wish you a wonderful open source future. Very ethical, very ethical, and at the same time very connected with like-minded and open-hearted people. And yeah, I look forward to meet again. And I'm proud to be part of such an amazing network.
Good,
everybody.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bedankt, tot ziens.